It's our party, how to host inclusive parties. So, I am very excited to share that I'm planning a New Year's event for Off the Beaten Path Learning. So now the thing is, though, is that when I was planning this party, I looked up on YouTube, I looked up on Google, resources, and I found Priya Parker, I found some pretty good YouTubers on party planning and event planning. But what I did not find was how to plan an inclusive party and how to make sure it's accommodating and flexible enough and everyone feels like they belong and everyone is having a good time. Um, yeah, an inclusive party. So that's what we're talking about in this video. So what is inclusion? Why is it important? Inclusion means that the space is set up so that everyone feels like they belong, aka that everyone has that need met in that space. Because belonging is in fact a human need. We are social beings, and if we do not feel like we belong, our livelihood is threatened. And we will be very stressed at the very least. And at the worst, we may act out, we may feel, put pain upon others or ourselves. So instead of all that, let's talk through how we create an inclusive celebration and a place for coming together to whatever extent they want to come together, to whatever capacity they can do so in whatever way they want. And it's really self-directed and it's really honoring the personhood in that very specific moment of that person's life, right? So here are a couple photos of inclusive celebration, but in a less of a party, more of a like small group context. So inclusion starts with the environment. We have to design the space so that it fits the people that are showing up and it meets them where they're at. The context matters. Whatever is happening in my surroundings will affect me. It is not a question of if it will affect me. It will affect me. Now, of course, I can decide how I respond, but there is also a lot of limiting factors within that. Robert Sapolsky is what does he study? He studies stress. He studies the brain. I'm pretty sure he's a neurologist. He studies primates, stress in primates and cortisol in primates. And anyway, Dr. Robert Sapolsky wrote a book called Behave. And in that book, he argues that a lot of our behavior is not completely in our control. And so what I'm saying here is that the more that the surrounding environment, the more that the surrounding context can ease and facilitate us to be the best people, to show up as the best version of ourselves, to behave in the best way. Because again, if I sense or if I feel that my belonging, that I don't belong in a certain space, I may act out. If you don't give a dog love, they may act out. Same thing with people. So even in that space, you have to show that you see them, that you see the attendees, that you see who they are as people in that moment, and create a space that honors that, that reflects that, that holds them for who they are and how they interact in the world. So instead of asking, like, how do I get people to participate? Instead, what would make participation feel safe, optional, and meaningful? Safe, optional, and meaningful. So why am I talking about this? Well, my name is Dominique Paloma Bible, and I have my master's in education. I've been an educator for 15 years. I've been an entrepreneur for 5 years. The owner of Off the Beaten Path Learning, the founder of Off the Beaten Path Learning. and we provide one-on-one education for neurodivergent teenagers. Now, aside from the 5 years, I've also worked with other entities and helped them plan inclusive parties. I worked with a foundation. I work with a foundation, and last year we did a big party of something like 600 kids and maybe 50 adults or more. It was big. It was at the New York Botanical Gardens. It was a really wonderful event, really wonderful event. And so that's just one example of the scale of events that I have helped to plan and have led in planning for kids, and including kids with special needs and disabilities and types of neurodivergence. I'm also sharing about this because when I studied my graduate degree, part of what I studied was culturally responsive and inclusive history education. Now, although I'm not talking about history education right now, I am definitely talking about being culturally responsive and inclusive in creating an event, in creating a party. So first I'm going to go through some principles for how to do this well, and then I'll apply it to the party that we're hosting. What will help you to throw an inclusive party? Principle number 1, multiple pathways. Have different ways for people to engage. This includes having written or verbal responses, and it really should say both written and verbal responses. So say things so that people can hear them, say them loudly, say them clearly, say them succinctly. Do not go on and on. Also have them written down. Pro tip, sometimes it's good to write in all capital letters for short signs. It can help kids with dyslexia sometimes. Flexible seating, right? So not everyone is adhered to sit in one chair for the whole time. Optional discussion formats. People think differently. People respond to different types of questions. It may be useful to ask the same prompt in a couple of different ways so that you have, again, different pathways for people to interact with the party, the purpose, the experience. Let people arrive slowly. Give them time to just waltz on in. Give them time to leave early. If they want to leave early, they can. I remember this was a really amazing part of my alma mater, Goddard College, where I got that graduate degree in education and studied culturally responsive and inclusive pedagogy. And while I was at Goddard, although I was not a child, I was a student, and they did, in fact, let me leave early when I had to exit a workshop because I forgot my meds, because I just needed to, because my energy was too much or too little or whatever. No questions asked. No big deal. Just leave. Because people should be able to come and go as they please and get whatever they need out of the experience, and then they leave. So that is a wonderful pathway, an offering to be inclusive, and allow people to engage sideways, which is to say, allow them to engage however they want to engage. We'll get into that a little bit more. Principle number 1 on multiple pathways, part of what we're doing for the party, for the Off the Beaten Path party, is having different social spaces, a quiet sensory room, areas for movement, arts and crafts, and games. We will have slinkies, these little slinkies with happy faces. We will have those. Principle number 2 is about inviting people in instead of enforcing people be there. Nothing at this event is mandatory, like nothing, not even the keynote speaker, which personally I'm very excited about, and I'll introduce her later in this video. We said, you're welcome to join, not take your seats, like you sit there right now. That's not the vibe. Safety invites engagement more effectively than authority ever will. The idea here is that safety creates engagement in a way that authority, it's not to say that authority doesn't create engagement, because I think the host does need to be a person that can lay down the law and have rules and boundaries and affect essentially community agreements. Those are important, and it's important that the host be a figure of authority so that everyone in the space does feel safe. But in terms of belonging and inclusion, the name of the game is safety and trust and creating trust. And so you want people to feel like they are seen, like they are heard, and that they have the capacity to speak up and be seen and heard whenever they want, or not whenever they want. So some ways of inviting people in could be creating different and clear options on how to participate. If someone wants to draw, if someone wants to speak, if someone wants to write, handwrite, or type in their phone, if someone wants to record a voice recording and then share it out to the group, like there should be different ways on how to participate, and those should be, going back to the multiple pathways, explained in different ways, so both written and verbal, etc. Maybe even with some iconography, some visual, some paired visual iconography. Invitation might also mean just an open option, like other, like maybe there's something I haven't thought of. Maybe you're going to interpretive dance how you like this party, instead of giving you like a feedback card, you can just tell me how you like the party with your body. Just, do a wiggle, and I'll see your wiggle, and I'll document that the best I can. And I can hear someone saying like, well, what about, like right now I'm working on metrics and measuring the data of Off the Beaten Path. And so I'm working with one of our educators on this, and she says to me, like, incomplete data is not good. It's not really data. Like if it's an incomplete story, it's kind of just like lying by omission. You just don't have the whole story, right? But I struggle with this a little bit, especially in terms of inclusion and getting back data on like an event like this, because the way that you get back data needs to be flexible enough that the people you want the data from can interact with it. And so it's interesting, like an open option can get messy for the host. It can be inconvenient for the host. But the very fact that it's convenient for the attendee, for the guests, that's who you're making it inclusive for. And so that's who you're focused on. That's who you want to serve. That's who you're catering to. That's who, it's not that you as the host don't matter. Of course you do. You also need to be included. You also need to feel like you belong. But again, it's kind of like the relationship between a parent and a child. Like you're there to protect the other. The river only flows in one direction. Option is good because you're ultimately there to serve the people who are showing up to this event, to this party. And so the open option allows them to show up as whoever they are, and have any idea that they want to throw in, they can throw it in. Also, they can just witness. They can just like listen, observe, take a back seat. They don't have to fully participate to participate. They can participate to whatever extent they wish. And if they want to opt out of interacting, they can let you know that as the host. You can even invite them explicitly to let you know that. Like if anyone wants to take a back, seat and step back today, let me know, and I will not call on you. I will, leave you alone, but feel welcome to be a part of the space and listen and observe and get meaning, constructive meaning out of the experience. And again, going back to the multiple pathways, joining when ready, as opposed to like when you have to. So belonging grows when people feel trusted, and trust happens when people are seen and heard as themselves, like not some idea of who you think I am, but you really trying to see me as the whole person, right? And this can be tricky because not everybody knows everybody. Like I'm thinking of that event at the New York Botanical Garden. I didn't know every single one of those kids. 600? I did not know all those 600 children. I knew maybe 100 of them, maybe. And I didn't know those 100 very well either. But I did try to think of like the 100 kids that I did know. How can I honor them in creating this space, in creating the context? So principle number 3 is let the space do the regulating. This means in terms of the context matters that you're making the context calm. You're making the context constant, predictable, consistent, so that there's a base. So have a clear purpose to the party. Have a clear mission for the party. In our case, it's to celebrate neurodivergence, to cultivate hope and joy, and to do that together. Have agreements. Priya Parker also talks about this. She says that there should be generous authority and that the host should impose this generous authority and name, like, here are the agreements, here are the boundaries, the rules, essentially, the rules of the party. And that if they're a little bit controversial or a little bit like debated, that's okay. In fact, it's good. Like you need a little bit of friction for people to really make the most out of the experience. By the way, these agreements should not be just like, unless they're collectively made on the spot, they should be shared in advance, thought about in advance, with reminders on the day of. Predictable schedule and flow, again, shared in advance. And this is for people that, they need to settle into the idea. I'm one of these people. I feel like part of having a mood disorder and like having gone through this for so long is that my energy goes up and down and my attention also goes up and down. And partly I have ADHD. And so if I get reminders and information in advance, I'm better prepared for the event itself. So I'm thinking of myself as the attendee right now. I'm thinking of myself as one of the guests. And to get the agreements, to get the purpose of the party, the agreements of the party, the agenda, the schedule, whatever you want to call it, all of that shared in advance is really, really helpful. To make sure that the food is responsive and inclusive to the people who are coming, and the decor. The decor should also be responsive and inclusive. For this, it's actually pretty interesting. What I'm doing is pictures of sharks and fireworks. This is definitely the most unique version of responsive that I've ever done in my education career. Fireworks and sharks are not normally what I think of when I think of responsive, but that is what the learners like. That is what they want to see, some of them on the walls, and so that's what we're going to put on the walls. If anyone is scared of any of that, then we'll take them off the walls, which is also responsive. Lighting choices, sound control, clear pathways so people can walk back and forth and don't feel cluttered, and flexible seating. Principle number 3 is all about like letting the space do the regulating. So the more regulated the environment, the more regulated are the people. And this is especially true for neurodivergent people and teenagers, but is really true for everybody. So yeah, like I said before, the purpose of this party, Off the Beaten Path, yay, New Year's party, January 4th at 4 p.m. to celebrate neurodivergent joy, hope, power, and to do so as a collective together. The keynote speaker is Dr. Gina Riley. Amazing human being, researcher, professor, director of adolescent special education program at Hunter City University of New York. I've been following her work for a very long time, and she's incredible. She studies, special education with teenagers, of course. That's the name of the program. But moreover, she looks at self-determination theory in the context of education. She looks at self-directed education. She looks at unschooling. She looks at neurodivergence. She looks at how these things come together, which is very interesting. She's worked with Dr. Peter Gray. She is a superstar. This is the space. Terry Knickerbocker Studio, really excited about this space. Elevator accessible, wheelchair ramp available, different lighting options, different soundscapes. There will be a room with music, a room that's quiet, and a room where people will talk to each other and like do arts and crafts. And there will also be enough space for people to move around. And all of this is super important to throwing an inclusive party. So again, Off the Beaten Path offers one-on-one education. If you would like to talk about your teenager receiving some one-on-one self-directed education, empowering them to be the best decision makers in their own life and power through with their own life, please reach out to Off the Beaten Path Learning. That's off, D-A, beatenpath.com, or you can use the QR code on the screen. I hope that we have a great time at the party. I'm very excited, and I hope that you learned something about inclusion and inclusive parties in this video. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Thank you.